Members of Congress, they returned to Capitol Hill today. The fight over raising the debt ceiling and preventing a government default enters a critical new phase. The White House and Republican leaders reached a tentative deal this weekend. That agreement gets its first test in a House committee. That's this afternoon. Nikole Killion joins us now with more. Good morning to you, Nikole.
Hey, good morning to you, Nancy and Anne-Marie. And this deal is going to need bipartisan buy-in to get through. House Republican leaders insist they have strong support, but some of their own members say they're not going to vote for it, and not all Democrats are on board either.
Today, the House cuts its Memorial Day recess short to return to Washington after President Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy reached an agreement on a plan to raise the nation's debt limit.
I never say I'm confident what the Congress is going to do, but I feel very good about it.
So it's not 100% what everybody wants, but when you look, the country is going to be stronger.
The proposed legislation, dubbed the Fiscal Responsibility Act, would raise the debt ceiling through early 2025, enabling the U.S. to keep borrowing money to pay its bills. In exchange, federal spending would be limited, including funding cuts to unused COVID relief and the IRS, and stricter work requirements for those on food assistance programs like SNAP.
Compromise means sacrifice for the most marginalized and the most vulnerable. We are not seeing our ultra-rich, our corporations make any sacrifices at all.
But it's not just some progressive Democrats who are balking at the deal, so are many conservative Republicans.
That there's people across the political spectrum that are opposed to this.
Several hardliners are threatening to scuttle the bill, which faces its first test this afternoon when it comes up for a vote in the GOP-dominated Rules Committee. Texas's Chip Roy sits on the panel and is a firm no.
So I'm going to be making that loud and clear to my Republican colleagues that this is not a deal that we should be taking.
So if this passes the Rules Committee, then the full House would vote on the debt deal Wednesday. The White House has called more than 60 House Democrats and is continuing to work the phones to try to get them on board. Guys?
I'm sure a lot of phone calls to be had there. Nikole, can you talk more about what we can expect to see from the House Rules Committee later today?
Well, the short answer is we don't know. I mean, it could go very smoothly according to plan. They go through the bill and have their vote, or it can be a little more raucous and rowdy from the standpoint of, as you heard Congressman Roy there say, he is opposed to this measure. And so you can expect him and other Republicans on the panel who disagree with this bill to voice some of their concerns. The big question is whether or not they're going to block this. Of course, Congressman Roy has pointed out that as part of the Speaker's battle a couple of months back, he said that there was a deal, a handshake deal, if you will, to basically allow any piece of legislation that goes through the committee must have unanimous Republican support. But some people are saying, hey, we didn't know about this, we're not sure about this. So, if that is the standard, then of course that could put this bill in jeopardy. But if it's not, if there are some Democrats who ultimately support it, then as I mentioned, it would go through the committee and then ultimately be voted on the House floor tomorrow.
So there are already two hard no's on the Republican side within the Rules Committee. Could that kill the deal? And the other sort of like handshake agreement that I wanted to ask you about that I thought I had heard was that lawmakers needed 72 hours before they would vote on something. But we've been reporting it's a possibility that the House could vote tomorrow, which wouldn't be 72 hours. So can you explain like some of these things that could possibly throw a wrench in the progress here?
Yeah, well, basically, in terms of the Rules Committee, you have a 9-4 split with Republicans dominating the Rules Committee. So again, you either need all 9 of those Republicans to support the measure, or if you have folks like Congressman Chip Roy and others who don't support it, then of course it's going to require some Democratic support, and that remains unclear. There's also Congressman Thomas Massie, who is another congressman who's kind of been on the fence, who's on that panel. So we will be watching those numbers closely. But, as far as the 72 hours, I mean, keep in mind that the text of this bill was released Sunday, so members have had Sunday, Monday. Today they'll have a chance to review the bill. It's just under 100 pages, so at this point we're tracking a vote probably sometime Wednesday evening, which would fall in line with that timetable.
All right, Nikole, thank you so much.